And good morning. You are listening to Warp and Woof Radio right here on the Cool Groove site at RadioNext.tv in the beautiful Collaborate 317 studio. Dr. Mark Eckel, Harold H.B. Bell. Every Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Trying to make some sense out of all this craziness out here. What's up, my brother?
Oh, man, I'll tell you, when you call Collaborate 317 beautiful, it is absolutely that. Anybody who wants to come out and join us for our open house tomorrow night, Thursday night, from 6 to 8, please do come and join us. Sign up for the events that we will be having there. And this is going to be a great evening where we get to introduce people not just to the space, but to each other and connect people. That's what we do out here at the Collaborate. This is a very powerful and important idea. And glad to be a part of this, HB.
Absolutely. And today, man, we're going to be talking about manners.
Yeah.
And this that's a lost art today. And we have a lot of controversy, especially going through the wire services on manners and misappropriation of just human kindness, I think. So we're going to be talking about that today. Laura Henderson's with Families First is in the house today. So when we come right back after this song, we're going to introduce you to Laura, and we're going to get right into this conversation. You're listening to Warp and Woof Radio on the Cool Groove site at RadioNext.tv. RadioNext.tv. We are live from the beautiful Collaborate 317 studios here for the Cool Groove site. And Warp and Woof Radio is the show. Mark Eckel, Dr. Mark Eckel is your host, and Laura Henderson's the guest. Dr. Mark, introduce Laura and let them know what's going on up in here.
Well, I'll tell you what, one of the great things about this wonderful position that I have as president of the Comenius Institute is how many wonderful people I get to meet around Indianapolis. And that, I think, is really an important idea that everybody needs to hear on a regular basis. That is, that we get to hear people that are doing good in Indianapolis, and that's a really huge issue for us. So we're really interested in fulfilling Titus 3. Titus 3 emphasizes, of course, that we are finding folks that are doing good, that are Christians in and around the public sphere, wherever it is that they operate. And Laura Henderson is one of those folks who works for Family First, a nonprofit here in Indianapolis. And we have been talking for some time about the issue of gratitude during the month of November, with all of our guests that are coming in this particular month, obviously leading up next week to Thanksgiving. So Laura has given out these wonderful wristbands that want to make courtesy common. And I'm wearing my yellow wristband that she gave me some time ago. And we've actually asked Laura to come in today to talk about the issue of manners. Laura, thanks for joining us. And tell us a little bit about yourself and your family and what you do here in Indy.
Thank you, Dr. Eckel, for this opportunity. Well, I'm a native of Indianapolis, actually by the way of Marion, Indiana. And been here in social service for many years. I started my work at a homeless shelter and then went on to work on the streets of Indianapolis and create an outreach team for Horizon House. So I love working with individuals and helping them find that there is good in the world. And certainly that comes by just being courteous to one another. And so our president at Families First, in lieu of all the sadness that's been happening, not just here in our city, but all over, said one morning, you know what, how come we just can't make courtesy common again? That's what it's lacking, if we can just be courteous to one another. So he created these wristlets that I've been handing out, and I find that a lot of people, you have to really think about what the word courteous means. I've asked when I've given to them, and it should flow off like your name, but it doesn't, and they have to think about it, especially our youth. And that's where a lot of our problems are lying right now, is within our youth. And I think being courteous and having gratitude is one, having the lack of it is one of the big problems there.
What do you see, you mentioned youth, what do you see as the issue there for them? Why is it that you pinpoint the youth as problematic in this regard?
Well, I talk with them a lot, and I was just recently at an event where there were probably over 300 male youth there, and they had these wristlets from various agencies on the table, and I noticed they were collecting them, just putting them on their arm for color or whatever. But I said, when they got to my table, I said, nope, you can't just take it. Let's talk about it. Let's read it. And so I said, what does it say? And then, we get to the word courteous, and I said, what does that mean? And they really had to think about it. And I said, so did you ask for the candy on the table next to you? Did you say, thank you, may I have a piece, please? And they said, oh, yeah, those are the words, yeah. But it wasn't anything that was just common nature for them, And so I said, so now that we know what the word courteous means and you have my ban and someone is not being courteous to you, you can just show them the hashtag and say, let's make courteous common. So I think, would they get upset because someone steps on their tennis shoe? Maybe because that person didn't take the moment to say, excuse me, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Or jump in front of someone else at line, excuse me. So just those little small words can make a big difference.
When you're talking about these kinds of issues, it makes me always want to ask, mostly because I'm the professorial type, I'm always looking for cause. And so when I'm asking about cause, I'm asking about why does this happen? So I'm just throw out a couple of ideas and you take a direction that you think it should go. In terms of cause, do you think this is they're not being taught at home, they're not being taught in the culture, they're not being taught at school? Is this a combination of all the above? What do you think about that?
Combination of all the above, because I received it at home first, and then it was carried on at school. I can remember in the home ec class, which I don't think they have those anymore, but we were taught manners, not only the proper table etiquette, but please, thank you, will you pass me that? You don't separate the salt and the pepper. They're a couple, they go together. So, manners and just being courteous to one another. And then it went on to a Sunday school and, BTU, Baptist training and all of those things, but we don't have many of those activities anymore. And certainly it's not shared at the home because that's where your training comes from first.
And what happens if folks don't have homes? I mean, we live in a culture that we have so many separate families now. We have divorce happening on a regular basis so that people are disjuncted from each other. And so, if one parent carries it through but the other does not, those kinds of things matter. The difficulty there would seem to be prevalent.
I could see it maybe be a little bit of strain, but I think it's just like if you teach someone, say, the national anthem, or you teach them Jesus Loves Me, and it sticks. I mean, I still know Jesus Loves Me song. So, your family can split. Maybe your dad goes this way, your mom goes that way, or vice versa. That is something that was inbred in us. That was something that I learned for myself through my parents. That I still carry today. So someone can just start singing that song and I'm going to jump right in with it. Or maybe they start talking about manners as we're doing now, and it brings back forth all of the things that my grandmother or my mom taught me as far as with manners. So I think if it's becomes a part of your life from birth, that you carried on no matter what the separation is.
It sure sounds like we're talking about a habit here.
Exactly.
Forming a habit.
Forming a habit. Mm-hmm.
So how do you think that is best done? How do you continue to, let's say, push this in front of somebody or encourage them toward this? How long does that take? What is the direction that you take in trying to teach people this?
We have to practice it. We not only here on our level, but our higher chiefs of authorities in Washington, D.C. have to practice it. It has to be something that the youth see in us, other people see in us. Just, as in our household, we have to say good morning in my house. You don't just get up and start your day and, with frown on your face and doing whatever. Good morning, how are you? And my kids, it just bother them so. Oh, my God, why do I have to say good morning? Good morning. And, I think it just gives you a start to a good day because it is a good morning. And just the gratitude, which is another word that goes right along with it, of having this opportunity. And then, I thought on the way out here about the word gratitude. And we say that we are grateful. I heard a lady on the radio said today was her birthday, and she was just very grateful for her however many years on earth. So when we say that, who are we saying that to?
There it is.
Are we just saying it in general to the universe? Who are we saying that we are grateful to?
Yes. Well, let's just pause here, shall we, for a theological important segue. The emphasis on gratitude really does teach us a very important theological concept, and that is that you give credit or credence or gratitude to somebody outside of yourself. So I tell my students that there are two basic pillars in life. One is gratitude, that is, you acknowledge someone else outside of you to whom you must give an account. But the other is discipline, and that comes from within you. So one is without, one is within. And discipline then is the thing that should drive us from within. So maybe the connection is between gratitude and discipline. How do we make that connection to, yes, there's someone outside of myself, whether it's mom at home or the Lord above.
Exactly.
And then how do we make that into a discipline on a regular basis with the folks that we're with? Again,
it's just, as you said, habit, practice. It's something we have to do over and over. And our parents or whoever our guide is in our home has to be the lead of that. Even from myself, I carried it on to my children, even though I said I was never going to do the things that my mom and my grandmother or my dad did. If we asked for something and we received it, we said thank you. If we didn't, my mom said give it back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why? It makes you think, why? Because as you said, someone gave me something, so where is my gratitude? I need to say thank you. And I thought, well, why do I need to say thank you? That's my mother. Because I appreciate my gratitude. I'm showing her because she doesn't have to, because my mom used to make it clear, I have certain things that I have to do for you, but there are certain things that I don't have to do, and I don't have to do the extra, but as long as I provide you the basics. So anything over and above that, and even as far as the basics, I feel now that, we should say thank you. Thank you, Mom, because you don't have to do that. Thank you, Dad, or whomever our caretakers are.
Yeah.
And it's just it just becomes a part of you. Spiritually, thanking God every day, every moment. I do it all day long. I mean, on my ride out here, just any moment that I have that time or I think about, I just took that breath out. What a gratitude that I don't have an oxygen tank and I don't have all of these other things. But even if I did, I'm still here and I'm so grateful. And so my gratitude goes to my higher being, and I thank him just constantly throughout the day.
That sounds like a spirit of prayer you got going on there. Yeah.
It is.
And since my mom is listening,
hey,
Mom,
Hi, Mom.
grateful for you. I often think about that, about moms who give birth to their children, and the issue of how important it is to have moms invested and involved in life. I mean, I'm sitting next to a mom, and we're talking, hey, Mom, we're talking to you as well. But there's a lot of moms out there in our audience, and some who will be listening to this in the podcast afterwards. I think this is going to be a really valuable and important concept for them. And maybe when we come back after break, we can talk about the connection that moms have to teaching and training their young people. I think that's going to be an important idea. So you're listening to Warp and Woof Radio. We come to you every Wednesday from 10 until noon. This morning we are talking with Laura Henderson from Families First. We're discussing in our month of gratitude the issue of manners and the necessity of those. And we're going to take a quick musical break, and we'll be right back.
RadioNext.tv, we are live from the big studio. I'm telling you, man, the power of technology. We started in the Studio B, as I like to call it, and now we have transformed and moved out. Dr. Mark Eckel and Laura Henderson are in the house, and we're talking about common courtesy and manners, and how can we get better at the simplicity of just being kind to one another. So, Dr. Mark, carry on.
Yeah, man, this has been a great show so far, and Laura, we're grateful again for your presence with us here. And the work that you do in Indianapolis, I think, is so important for people to understand. If you're ever at all interested in finding out what Laura and so many other great folks do in Indy, check out Families First in Indianapolis. Very, very fine nonprofit. But we wanted to come back to the issue of generosity and the issue of gratitude and thankfulness and all of those things we're emphasizing this month. And we stopped just before break just discussing about mothers. And it struck us as we were talking off air that, there's lots of different directions that folks can go with this discussion about moms. Some moms like, our mom, HB's mom and mine. My mom has adopted HB and HB's adopted her. So, some of our moms are still alive. Some of our moms are deceased. And then some of us come from different kinds of families, and so some moms are adopted moms and those kinds of things. And Laura, you were telling me a little bit about your own personal life. Fill us in on that, and maybe connect to some of the folks out there that might feel what you feel in that way.
Sure, and I kind of love to share this because I meet so many youth these days that are adopted or in foster homes, and I have experienced both through my life. Beginning at 6 years of age. And, when I think back my memory, that's about as far as my memory will go back is 5th or 6th grade. So I do remember my parents, my birth mom, my natural mom, and my sibling and my family. And so when I was adopted, I didn't see the purpose in me being there. I felt that it was their own personal agenda. I had no gratitude. I was not grateful. I was not very appreciative of what I had. And it was not until I was 18 and had reunited with my birth family that I saw what possibly could have been my life versus what I had. But unfortunately, my adopted parents had passed away. And that is when I really realized how grateful I was for what I had, for the life they had given me, for who they had directed me to be. Just one, if I had a wish, a genie in a bottle for one thing, if I could just have 30 seconds now to tell them how grateful I am for what they have given me, what they gave me, and who they molded me to be versus my options of what they could have been in life. And these people that adopt children or take foster children in, they have to have a true love for what they do and for another individual. But I didn't see that, and I didn't know that then. And so I'm just speaking to anyone that's in a foster home or that is adopted, and you might be feeling lost. But you know what? Grasp the moment, what you have, because you never know what you came from.
Wow. This issue of being in some way disjointed or separated from our birth parents, wow, we have to have a whole show on this, don't we? We do. And I built a relationship with my birth mom, but it never was the love and closeness that I had built with my adopted mother. And I did tell my birth mom, because she struggled with the fact that she had given me away for whatever reasons. But I ended up telling her that I was grateful that she did that. And she looked at me like, why would you say something like that? Because what I learned of her struggles in life, I didn't have to experience that. So it takes a lot to say, I can't do this. I have to give up my child for whatever reason. So I was grateful to her for doing that. And that helped relieve her of whatever she was feeling as a mother or as an individual of giving up their child. This is an important connection to church history. One of the things that we know, for instance, when the church just began after the day of Pentecost, Peter's first preachment and so on, is that Christians were doing good in the Roman Empire. And one of the ways that Christians did good was they would literally take these little babies that Roman citizens were throwing out, and they would take them and raise them as their own because they believed that everybody's made in God's image and therefore has worth, value, and dignity and all of the rest that you and I know and accept as believers. And this is an important, powerful idea, I think, that begins from the inception of the church. But not only that, but it goes back to the Hebrews, the book of Leviticus, taking care of those who are orphans and widows. I mean, this is just part of what we should be doing.
Exactly. And it made me think of a sermon I heard not too long ago, which made me feel kind of proud that I was in that group, that Moses was actually a foster child because his mom gave him away.
There you go.
And I thought, well, look, I'm in an awesome class here, you know? So the connection to that just gave me a whole new breath on it.
Oh, my word.
Yeah.
Seriously, I'm going to have to get a piece of paper and a pencil and write all this stuff down because this is really powerful. When we think about, and we're kind of moving away from manners, but quite frankly, we're kind of moving back into it in a way, we're really grateful not only to the Lord who has given us life, but now we're grateful to Him that He has placed us in a place with other people who are going to actually care about us.
Exactly.
Wow, how about that?
How about that?
Yeah, amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then when we stop to consider our obligations and responsibilities to those individuals, we are indeed giving them thanks and appreciation for all of that. So let's get back to the some of these other questions, though. And since we're talking about the church, let's go to the church. How does the church do its job in terms of teaching about gratitude?
Well, again, it's the Sunday school lessons, it's the Bible study lessons that show it in there. I think Hebrews 12 and 28 specifically talks about gratitude, and teaching it on that level as well as their daily walks. How do you take this from the Bible? How do you take this from the class and put it in your daily walk every day, in your household? Well, even before you walk out of the church, how do you exhibit that? How do you show that? And it has to begin with the peers and the leaders of the church.
Yes. I'm thinking about, let's go back for a moment to what we started our conversation about with the young people. And you just mentioned Hebrews, which made me think there are a couple of great verses here in the book of Hebrews that deal with the issue of being thankful for the opportunity to actually give thanks for our leadership. And so in Hebrews chapter 13, it really does actually develop that particular theme where we find that we are supposed to give thanks to those who are over us.
Exactly.
Just imagine that. So do you find that young people are actually appreciative of those who are over them?
No, what I see, I'm not going to say all young people because we do have some great, awesome young people, but quite a few. It's entitlement.
That's it.
You birthed me. I didn't ask to come here. And I've had my children tell me that themselves, and we had to have a conversation about that.
I bet you did.
Yeah, so we won't talk about it on
We
air.
won't talk about that now.
No. But so, yeah, they just have this sense of entitlement, and I think through the years it's just gotten worse. My children are products of the 70s, and I saw it back there, and it's just like a balloon. The helium is just filling it bigger and bigger, and so now with the lack of discipline that and when I say the lack of it, the way my mom and dad disciplined us is gone out the door. They would still be serving a life sentence. So we have to discipline with a long handle spoon now. Just don't touch them. And we do that, but we lost a lot. We lost a lot in providing guidance to our children, and just again having that in your household, being respectful and having a gratitude of thank you in your household. Thank you for the food.
Right.
Thank you for the lights. We as youth we just take all that for granted.
Isn't that the truth? Boy, I tell my students all the time. I still teach a high school class, and I tell them, this is the last time in your life when somebody's going to pay all your bills, put food in your belly, a roof over your head, and clothes on your back.
Absolutely.
And straight up, man, that is just huge for young people to get this. Let me read this passage here from Hebrews chapter 13 for everybody. Hebrews 13:17 says, "Obey your leaders and submit to them, for they are keeping watch over your souls as those who will have to give an account. Let them do this with joy and not with groaning, for that would be of no advantage to you." So for everybody out there listening, you're thinking to yourself, well, that just talks about leaders. The leaders are the elders. So they're the ones that are the older ones, and they are indeed, in other passages like 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, Paul refers to himself as a father and a mother. So those metaphors run right straight through the church.
Exactly.
We bear responsibility, moms and dads, to other folks. So let's talk about that for a moment, because it seems like we're kind of moving in that direction with the moms and dads emphasis. How is it that we should be adopting? I mean that in a general mentorship, discipleship sense. How should we be adopting young people, and then how does that then work into this gratitude and thankfulness emphasis?
Well, I know in my church we have our elder mothers, and they talk to us. They kind of discipline us when we're out of order. They give you that particular look when you're not doing what you're supposed to do. And I don't know that they still have those in all of the churches now, but it's still like your neighborhood mom.
Yeah.
I didn't want my neighborhood mom to know anything that I had was out of order before I got home, because I certainly didn't want to get it twice there and from my mom. So I think, again, that talks about being a community, and each one help one. And we've moved away from that. I'll give you a real quick example. There was a young lady that was not dressed appropriate. My daughter was with me. My daughter knew her, and I said, well, and so she was making a comment about it, and I said, well, why don't you go over and talk with her about it? She said, oh, no, I won't. And I said, why not? You know her. Maybe she doesn't know. And she would not do it. She would not go over and talk to you. No, I'm not getting in someone else's business. So we've moved to that. It's someone else's business, where the mothers, which my daughter would be more or less of a mother figure to this young lady, could have provided her some direction. I said, maybe no one's ever told her that.
Is this a part of common courtesy?
Common courtesy.
I mean, to actually, put it in the lingo that some of us grew up in, to get up in their grill,
Exactly. But we can't take it for granted that everyone knows what they need to know, and we can't take it for granted that what takes place in our household takes place in theirs. And that was a aha moment for me after working on the street with homeless individuals for 15 years. And so I just assumed that manners I had, behaviors I had, everyone's mom taught them that, or whoever their guide was at their home. But not so, because everyone didn't have a mom that was providing those tools, instructions of life. And so I felt that it was my opportunity and my responsibility as a Christian to give them that information. Now, maybe I was just feeding a seed or planting a seed, and hopefully it continues to get water and germinate somewhere along life's line. But for that moment, I didn't feel that I could walk away and not say something, or tell them. Even saying, you didn't say thank you? Can you tell them thank you? They did something nice for you, So I just felt like it's our responsibility.
Sure. Well, it seems like we're making these really easy segues for each other. Let's come back. When we come back, let's talk a little bit more about the responsibility that each of us should have to encourage this process, because it's easy enough to say, yeah, we should be saying thank you, but now how do we get in somebody else's business and actually promote that, or at least call folks up on it? I'll call into question those things. We'll come back to that after we take a short musical break. You're listening to Warp and Woof Radio. We'll be right. We are back. Warp and Woof Radio at RadioNext.tv at the Cool Groove site. We are here today with Laura Henderson. We are discussing this issue of manners and gratitude during the month of November, and thankful ever so much for folks like Laura who are doing such great work at Families First downtown Indianapolis. But as we segued after our last section, and as we kind of dial in here in our last few moments, we began to talk about the issue of responsibility, and actually some of the responsibility that those of us who might be older, who might be in a different stage of life, whatever the case might be, we bear responsibility actually to give some kind of direction to others. And so let's talk about that a little bit, Laura, the necessity of that, and how do we perhaps reclaim the moral basis for doing something like that, getting up in somebody's business, speaking into the life of somebody else. How do we do that? Who does it? When do we do it? All those questions.
And again, that's all about relationship building with individuals as well. I mean, you just, I think about it before I approach someone. If I know them, I try to think about the best way to approach them where it would not be offensive to them. And sometimes you just can't avoid that because people are their perception is their reality, and they may think that, she's all up in my business. But when I'm able to walk away from it, I say, I planted the seed. Hopefully it will germinate over time. And what I said to them will come back in remembrance. And I tell a lot of the youth that I work with that you don't get it today. And you know what? I didn't get it when my grandmother said the grass looked greener on the other side. Well, it does. Until one day I was walking in the park and I looked ahead of me and the grass was beautiful. But then when I got up there, it had the same hose as the grass behind me. And I said, oh, that's what she means. And so, you know, I'm thankful for that analogy now that I understand that it is not. It has the same hose. So that's my hope when I talk to young people is that you will get it. You might not get it today. And then, so just find me at Crown Hill somewhere and say, hey, lady, I got it. So, but we have to practice it. And they say, you know, a habit is anything we can do repeatedly. So if we as adults or anyone that has connection to the young people, because I'm not just saying young people, but, you know, we all need to be redirected in some way. But I think our biggest change in this world is going to come with our young people. So the more we can display that, the more we can be that example for them, the more they are going to adapt to that because they are just like sponges. They're absorbing everything around us, good, bad, and indifference. And if all they ever see is the bad part and how we are so disrespectful in our neighborhood to the top house, then it's nothing. Why not me? Why should I be different? But we need to show difference. We need to be different.
Now, you used a phrase a moment ago that just kind of passed over, but it's really important for anybody who's listening here to know what Crown Hill is. Go ahead and tell us.
That is the cemetery.
That's it.
That's their final resting place.
That's right. Now, you said something very interesting. You said, now come up and tell me at Crown Hill. What did you mean by that?
Well, you know, I figured it was going to take a while, like it did me when my grandmother said the grass is greener on the other side. So when I made that connection to what she was actually talking about, I did go over to Crown Hill and went to her gravesite, and I said, Granny, I got it now. I got it.
There you go.
So.
Now, I thought it was really interesting that you made that connection because I'm always talking about death, and I don't mean by that morbidity. I mean by that you need to plan.
Exactly. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Yeah. That's one thing we have no control over.
That's right. Unless you're Elijah, you know. I don't think we're getting drawn up into heaven anytime soon like he did.
Exactly.
So when we think about the issue of, you know, going to the cemetery and saying, hey, you know, I finally get it, how important is it for us to actually be planning ahead, thinking, you know what, I need to give of myself totally now to these young people so that when I'm gone, they carry on.
Exactly. And I think about that. I think about what kind of remembrance do I want to leave for the people that know me. And they may not necessarily remember my name, but they're going to remember what I said or what I did or what I didn't say or what I didn't do. And so I try to leave a good impression, a good word, something for them to be able to continue to move in a positive way. There's so much darkness right now in the world. Every time we turn around, there's some darkness. So try to be that ray of light, of hopeness, that they will get the same thing that I got. Because I'm so grateful and so thankful for my adopted family and the life I have. And I don't have everything as kids think you're supposed to have everything in life. I do not. But I am so rich in who I am and just my space on this earth. Yeah. And I just love living, and I love God so much, and I just tell him frequently and throughout the day, just having a heart of thankfulness. We have to. It
sounds like you actually take that pray continuously command to heart.
Oh, exactly. Yes. All the time. At any moment, I prayed on my way out here. On our little breaks, I pray, thank you, God, that I remembered my name.
Just so you know, everybody who's listening, Laura has an awful lot of things on her mind. So for those of us who actually have many, many multiple ideas going on in our brains, such a comment is not an unusual thing. But let me come back to that issue of kind of planning ahead for the next generation. I've been teaching for 35 years, and so just this last week, one of my former students became mayor of his city in Michigan. Oh, wow. And I have to tell you that he was one of the most recalcitrant, belligerent, obnoxious individuals that I have ever taught in my life. And now, all of these years later, we reconnected and so on down the line, and for some years now. And he always goes back to that. And he says, thank you that you stayed with me and that you kept it up, that you were in my face, that you told me what you really thought, and all those kinds of things. And so it really does pay off in the end in that sense.
It does. Exactly. That's what I was saying. We have to stay in their face, and we just have to make it continuous. Can't give up on it, and you can't say, they're never going to get it. It's there, and it takes a little bit of time. Remember, we didn't get to where we're at today overnight. It took quite a bit of time. And so be hopeful for them and let them see that you have hope in them. And then thank God that you're in their space. To be that person,
right.
To lead them, guide them, and direct them in the right way.
So for, again, anybody who's listening, passages like Psalm 78, I'm constantly reminded of Psalm 78, 14-18. Until I'm old and gray, I will continue to teach your mighty works to the next generation. And I was reminded of this just a moment ago, Laura, when you were saying that, you're going to be going over to teaching at Eastern Star. And you do some kind of teaching in various places, I suspect.
Yes.
So tell us about the impact that the teaching has. You're doing it right now. You're doing it for this particular group of individuals. What kind of impact does teaching have in the long run from your vantage point as you've been teaching over all these years?
For me personally, I never wanted to be in this role. I was happy where I was, but and God has moved me and introduced me into so many people and given me this opportunity. And I'm very grateful for it, and that he saw in me, or that he created in me, because he already knew where I was going to be at today. And so I use this anytime I'm talking with youth, be it at the church, be it on my job, or just in my personal walk. I use this opportunity to teach them. Jesus was a teacher. And so I don't want to hear, I gave you a charge and you didn't do it. So I hope before I get to Crown Hill, I hear that.
And once again, that's the cemetery.
That, I did best as I could with the human abilities I had here on earth. That God has given me, and he charged me to be a teacher in this role. And so take that opportunity to give back by helping our youth. Jesus was not in a classroom. He walked the streets. Hey, I've walked the streets many a days, 15 years with the homeless. And I didn't have a problem sitting down, hugging them, loving on them. We all need love, loving on them. So, just being a teacher of love. And that's just an exciting thing. And that's what I do when I go to these things. I just try to be a teacher of love. I have a set curriculum I have to give. But in that, I want to show them that I really love you. I really care about you. It makes a difference to me, whether you get to where you need to be or you keep struggling at what is it for me to do.
Yeah.
And so I really love this.
That's huge. If you were going to tell us what's a final word that you would like everybody to know, what would you want to say?
I'd like to give this from Maya Angelou. Let gratitude be the pillow upon which you kneel to say your nightly prayer, and let faith be the bridge you build to overcome evil, welcome good. Yeah.
Say that last line again, please.
Let faith be the bridge you build to overcome evil and welcome good.
Ooh, overcoming evil and welcoming good. Exactly. I always smile at those things. I'm reading Maya Angelou right now, but I'm also thinking about Amos, and I mentioned this to you off air. Amos chapter 5 says, hate evil but love good. And our responsibility is to do just that. Now, how and when we do it and with who we do it, it's going to be different. We're all going to do it in a different way.
And it comes through us exhibiting just common courtesy.
Look at that. Look at you pushing that button.
Yes, and it's real easy. It should just flow off like your name. And even in the grocery store, thanking the cashier, and maybe sometimes thanking them 3 times to get a response back. And they'll look up at you like, oh. But we do it. We just keep doing it and just keep doing it until we get it. It can be a national thing, let's make courtesy common.
We're going to have all these yellow wristbands all over the United States.
As a reminder,
yeah. Great.
I think I'm going to mail some to the House of Senate or something.
There you go. Well, Laura, it's great to have you here again
Thank
today.
you.
Thank you ever so much for being here today
Thank
and your
you.
time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Blessings on the rest of your day, the rest of the week, and also the Thanksgiving season.
Likewise. Same to you.
Appreciate
Thank
it. Well, you're listening to Warp and Woof Radio, and this is our first hour. We've been discussing the issue of manners within the context of gratitude. Thankful again, of course, for Laura Henderson and the good work that she does at Families First. In our next hour, after a musical break, we're going to be hearing from John Smitha, who is himself an Air Force vet, and he is going to be speaking to the issue of being grateful not only for our veterans, but also speaking to the good work that he does in listening to vets and getting them to talk. This is a huge issue in our culture. We're so grateful for all who have served, kept us free, and now it's our responsibility to give back to them. We're going to be hearing from John Smitha in just a few minutes after a musical break. You're listening to Warp and Woof Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Warp and Woof Radio. We come to you every Wednesday from 10 until noon. And this particular Wednesday, we have the great opportunity of having heard Laura Henderson in our first hour from Families First. And we're discussing the issue of gratitude and thankfulness generally during the month of November. And she was talking with us about manners and how we perpetuate that kind of emphasis throughout our young people, throughout our homes, throughout our churches, throughout the nation for that matter. But now we have the great opportunity and privilege, I might add, to have John Smitha here with us. John is a veteran from the Air Force, and he has a very unique ministry, which is one that's been publicized here around Indianapolis, and he has great support from his local church. John, we're so grateful that you're here today. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, thank you for having me. I started a group, a peer support, back in 2006, and spent a year with a mentor learning how to listen and talk to veterans. Having been one myself made it a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. And we started having meetings at Guy's Christian Church. We have one church in two locations, at 86th and Mud Creek and 126th and Promise Road. And I would have meetings there from 6 to 7, and the vets started coming in. And I had a good friend of mine, Kent Maxfield, who passed in just last year. And he came in and said, I want to help you, but I don't think I have a problem. And after about the fourth meeting, Kent and I looked at each other and said, we have the same problems they do with PTSD. And him being a Vietnam vet, he decided to stay and help me with my ministry. And we go to schools, set up tabletop displays, talk to people, any place we could get, talk to about veterans, with veterans, to veterans. And slowly but surely, our ministry started growing. And all of a sudden, we started noticing reactions out of these guys. It's not us. It's about the peer support. When you have a half a dozen vets sitting around a table talking about their anger and their anxiety, they start healing each other. All I do is start the thing out, and they talk about their problems. I talk about my problems. They help me. We help each other.
It sounds very much like when you're talking. Use this phrase a couple times now. The phrase "each other," and it strikes me that over 50 times in the New Testament that phrase is used. That we're supposed to help one another or each other, and we encourage, we honor, we love each other. All of those kinds of things. So it sounds like you're actually practicing biblical truths.
Yes, that's and that's the one thing I'm very grateful for. I didn't. Until I got out of the service, I didn't know anything about religion at all. And I met my lovely wife of 54 years, and she brought me to God. And that's when I decided that I needed to serve Him instead of myself. Instead of taking, start giving. And it's been a slow process because you don't get all these guys in at one time, and gals. They come in one at a time. You have to be patient. My mentor sat in his office for 2 years before the first veteran showed up. And I was very fortunate. I had 3 in my first meeting, and it's been like that ever since.
Well, let me ask this question. I mean, how you said that this guy sat in his office for 2 years before somebody showed up. What is it that inhibits vets from seeking help for even somebody that, they know that somebody else is a vet? What inhibits them from just sitting down and talking?
Well, there are 3 words, and please remember these words. If you have a vet in your family, they were not trained to be vulnerable, patient, or tolerant. They were trained to respond, react, and show no mercy. And when they came back, they were supposed to be untrained, but that didn't happen. And they're left with a lot of anger, anxiety, and pain. And that's why the peer support groups are so important, because we talk to each other about taking that first step, being vulnerable, admitting you need help. Once you've done that, then the rest becomes easier. And with the help of God, we've been able to help quite a few. Not everybody, some of them come, some of them go. I've got some of them now that I've been with for 10 years. And now it's their most important day of their week, is being at that meeting talking about things. And I'm very grateful. I feel humbled that there's trust that they can talk to me and we can get some of their problems solved. Everybody has problems every day, and they need to know that they're not alone. We're here for them, and that God forgave them for what they did. And they need to forgive themselves. It's a wonderful ministry, and I feel honored and privileged to just be a small part of it.
I'm grateful that you're here to tell us about these things, and I wanted to reemphasize this to everybody. The words that John has just suggested here, that veterans were not trained to be vulnerable. They were not trained to be tolerant. And what was the third word?
Patient.
They were not trained to be patient. Warriors, people that we send out to do our fighting for us, are trained to do one thing, and that's to combat, to respond to combat, and to deal with situations that confront them that are life-threatening situations. And for us then, to spend the time and the opportunity that we might have to listen to other people who have done this for us, it sure sounds like the shoe's now on the other foot, that we should be the tolerant ones, that we should be the patient ones and listening to folks instead of wondering why in the world are they reacting that way.
Most certainly. Matter of fact, we had a dinner for Veterans Appreciation Dinner at our church last week, and our guest speaker had all the non-vets stand up and applaud each other, because he said, "You are the only support group that we have."
Wow.
And it really, it struck me quite a bit. And him being a wonderful human being, he was an airborne ranger. He got injured, ended up command sergeant major at JAG, and at age 54 he got his law degree. And now he helps veterans.
It strikes me as I hear you talking about these things, I've been looking up this movie that I wanted to remind everybody of. The title of the movie is an old movie from 1946, The Best Years of Our Lives. How important is it, let's say, for instance, somebody coming out of World War II, somebody coming out of Korea, Vietnam, how important is it for those who are helping them, so all of the non-vets, to, let's say, be in front of movies like this to get a sense of the necessity of reconnecting folks to the culture?
Yes. Well, going back to World War II and Korea, for that matter, they came back on ships. They had downtime after the war. And there wasn't social media out there, so they didn't know about all the things that they did. It wasn't brought up to them. So when they came back, they came home. Dad made them get a car, get a job, get married, and move on, which is what they did. they like to get together and tell their stories to one another. The Vietnam vets and the Afghani and Iraqi vets, all these other vets, social media has been very active in telling them what horrible things they're doing, and thus that's where we talk about moral injury. And these poor guys come back. The average Vietnam vet, when he came back, there are 25 different symptoms that PTSD manifests itself. They had 7 symptoms, average 7 symptoms.
Wow.
The Iraq and Afghani vets average 17 symptoms. And that's why we have the 22 suicides a day. The Vietnam vets, 48,000, over 50,000 of them died over there, but since 75, 155,000 of them have committed suicide. It's moral injury. The more I learn about it, it just makes the job that much harder, and that's why we've got to concentrate. All the churches, everybody needs to concentrate on helping these vets, getting together, not competing with one another, but uniting to let these poor guys and gals know they're not alone, that they do have some help, and we can sure help them.
This, I have to say to everybody that's listening and those who will get on the podcast later on, I have never heard this phrase before, moral injury. I've never heard that phrase. I've never heard that phrase as it relates to anything, much less warfare. And so let me just say a couple of things just to make the point. First of all, those of us who have never been in combat, those of us who have never served, we bear responsibility to those who have. The second thing I'd say is that we have no basis from which to say any kind of statements to somebody who's been there and done that. And so for us to make any kinds of comments that way, we should never do that. But what we should do is reach out. We should care and be concerned. John Smith's church is one of those. Geist Community is a great church, great Geist Christian. We're grateful for them and for their work. This is something perhaps that other churches can pick up and work with as well. When we come back from the break, we are going to be continuing our conversation with John Smith about the issue of veterans and the communication that we need to do with them, thanking them not only for their service, but helping them through the difficulty of coming back after service. You're listening to Warp and Woof Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Actually, we're bleeding over from our off-air comments into the on-air comments, just because there's so much fullness in all of this discussion that we're having here today. And maybe that will happen in our next break. Who knows? But nonetheless, we're back with John Smitha, and John is working with vets here in Indianapolis out of his church, Geist Christian Church. And you mentioned that you had 2 locations. Actually, one of them I drive by all the time on Mud Road. Is that right?
Creek, yeah.
Mud Creek Road. Yeah. All the time. Yeah, it's a great facility and great work being done there. Why don't you tell them about not only the places again, but tell them times that you're all available.
Monday, we have a meeting at 126th and Promise Road, our location there. And right now, that's the only meeting I'm having at Geist Christian Church. The meeting I had on Tuesdays at Mud Creek, everybody wants to go up to Promise Road because they have a Higher Grounds coffee shop there.
Okay.
And with this new ministry I started, bringing vets in to talk, Skylar Glancy, who owns Higher Grounds, is giving them free coffee and whatever they want so they can come in and talk, and we can collect some stories. And that Monday group is really good because it's a relaxing place, and vets need to feel safe.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of trust, a lot of confidentiality. They know that what's said there stays there, and we're there for them. We love them. The pastors will come in once in a while and introduce themselves and thank them and say we're here for you. And there's a lot of confidence there. And of course, you get them in and get a free cup of coffee and just relax and talk. It's amazing what comes out of it. I had an Afghani vet that had 3 tours over in Afghanistan, and I was at a men's club meeting, and he texted me, and I never will forget. It was April 28th of 2016, and he said, "Suicide's not an option," and that made my whole ministry. Because that's what you want to hear, these guys that, no, I'm not giving up. I'm going to fight this. We're going to fight it together, and we're going to readjust. And I've got a family to live for.
This is once again, I want to say to everybody, not only is this discussion very difficult, but it's also very necessary. And for those in the church, we're talking with John Smith, Church. 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 We're talking with Beaver and Jesus. I am as well. This is the whole point of this radio show. Our focus is on telling Indianapolis and the world, for that matter, what's going on. That's folks that are doing good in Indianapolis. This is one of those goodnesses that we honestly do not hear about very often, and it's unfortunate but true. I think it's one of the things that one of the reasons why I wanted you on the show, not just because we've just celebrated Veterans Day, honoring those who have gone out on our behalf, but also because this is such an important ministry. And I wanted to ask you one question about this as we talk about the future of what this is. How do you see your work benefiting the future of veterans? You've told us some of the stories about some of the vets you've dealt with. I'm sure we'll get into some of those, some more of those. But I wanted to ask you about your work benefiting the future of vets. Where do you see this going in the future?
Well, if we don't give up, I have had a good friend that passed that he lived by the initials LLJ and NEGU, love like Jesus and never ever give up. And he died of pancreatic cancer, and he fought it for 4 years, and he never gave up. And he's been an inspiration to both me and the other vets that come in. Because we can't give up. We have to keep fighting this and showing our love and talking to these vets that God has forgiven them for what they've done, and they should work on forgiving themselves. And with the Lord's help and me just being there listening, that's what it's all about. These guys can heal each other and become better citizens, better husbands, better fathers. And I've watched a lot of some success, and it's very gratifying, very wonderful.
When I hear you talk about these things, I'm thinking about what is next. So what are the folks that might be coming after you? Do you think that any of the folks that you're helping right now will take it upon themselves to do what you're doing?
Yes, I do. There are some right now that have moved on, have taken on groups themselves, some out of state. They believe in what we're doing, and once they learn how to do it, it's not the hardest thing in the world to do. All you have to do is listen. And thank my wife for that, because she talked me into going to Stephen Ministry, and that's what Stephen Ministry teaches you do, how to listen and let people heal themselves. Don't tell people how they feel. Let them tell you how they feel.
I noticed that on your Facebook page, that's actually one of the prominent comments that you have there. Tell everybody about what the Stephen Ministry is, please.
Well, we belong to a fairly large church, and our pastors, they work their tails off. I used to think, boy, I'd love to be a pastor, preach on Sunday and rest all the rest of the week. Well, they put in 70, 80-hour weeks, and they don't have time to call on everybody. They sure do try, but they don't. So Stephen Ministry, we go through about a year of training, and it's sort of a lay ministry. And if we have people that are going through having problems, going through divorce, going through health problems, anything, we're matched up as close as they can do it. The person that does that matches us up. We're almost identical. And my first guy that I was matched up with, I was with for 18 months. And I met with him every week. We prayed. We talked about the problems. I listened. And today he's doing real well. And we're still very good friends. And that's another thing about it. Once you start with these guys, you've got them for life because you become such good friends. But Stephen Ministry teaches you so much about listening and having compassion and not being judgmental. And that's why I couldn't be doing for these vets today without having done that first. I praise the Stephen Ministry. We have a men's group at our church that started out being a 6-week Bible study. There were 8 of us. And then 7 years later, there's 61 of us. And a third of them are veterans.
Wow.
And they've been coming every week to this.
Well, let me ask this question, because you just mentioned this about Bible study. It strikes me to ask this question. You mentioned that you came to faith late. That is, through the ministry of your wife.
Right.
This is an important idea. How important is it then for these guys to be in the Scriptures? How important is it for them to understand the Scriptures and be taught the Scriptures and have Bible studies?
To me, the Scriptures were so soothing. One of my challenges was with the men's club is one of the first things I did was I grabbed a Bible and read it from cover to cover in a year. Didn't learn anything, but I've had to read it several more times and go to several Bible studies. Once you get started, you develop a thirst. And that's why we hope if we can get these veterans to start thinking about Scripture, about thinking about God and His mercy, and get them coming to these Bible studies, then they develop a thirst, and they want to know more. And one of the things we teach them is because they seem to be the victims of PTSD or the vets' wives. And we teach them that the wife is the treasure. You got to treasure that wife, and she's the one that's going to save you if you're going to be saved. And hold on to her, and she's your support. And that has helped a lot of people change. And I tell these guys to tell their stories to their wives. They may not understand it, they may not get it, but they're not supposed to. They weren't there, but at least they'll know what you're going through, and they'll just strengthen their support for you.
So then the obvious next question for me, hearing about your wife and your emphasis on the other wives that you're interacting with through these guys, would be who's taking care of those wives? I mean, who's listening to the wives who are listening to their husbands? There's got to be somebody that should be participating on the other side of even that group of folks.
Well, we have a group of wives in our church. We did set it up where it was 2 times a month we would have meetings, and while the wives dropped the husbands off the meeting, they would go talk to the wives.
Oh, great.
And now we're doing it by appointment because God help them. The younger they are, the harder they are to bring in. They don't. Young people don't need the support. I'm tough. I can handle it myself, and that's what I mean about vulnerability. But we do have some wives, and we have a couple of our wives that all you have to do, I call them, and they'll be there right now and start talking to this wife or this mother or whoever's concerned about their loved one. And that's another thing we have. We just now are getting started a ministry. It's small, but it's valuable. once a week we're going to have 3 hours of free daycare for single mothers.
Oh, that's great.
And for wives of vets,
Mm-hmm.
that so they can go and relax and get their hair done, go shopping, whatever they want to do. Give them some free time to reflect. And it's just the beginning. I call our ministers the A team because they support this ministry so much, and they're always thinking about what can we do to make it easier on the families. And our men's club has offered outreach for the families of vets if they need something done. There isn't anything we won't do. All they have to do is ask. So
that sounds like a tremendous ministry, and certainly one that is of necessity. Before we take our next break here in just a couple of minutes, we want to make sure to be honest and state the obvious, and that is that we're grateful for the service of everybody who has given some of their life and in some cases their lives on our behalf. This is something that we want to make sure to express to everybody, not only folks who might be listening to us, but the opportunity that we have anytime to thank people for their service. I wanted to ask you before we go on break, what is it? How do vets respond to that? Thank you for your service. How do they respond to that phrase?
It's two ways. Some of them acknowledge it. Some of them don't think too much of it. They say, you want to thank the ones that didn't come back.
Okay.
They're a very selfless, unselfish group of men and women that they are not the heroes. The ones that they left over there are the heroes. And they accept praise, but they're not looking for it. They're remarkable. Veterans are a remarkable bunch of human beings. They've experienced a lot of life and death and about every emotion you can think of, and they've walked out of it and come back, and they're worth saving.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we think about these things, when we think about how should we respond to vets, when we hear that somebody is a vet or when we're speaking with them, what would be your advice to us? What kind of things should we say? What kind of things shouldn't we say?
When I meet one, and of course my wife will tell you, any place, grocery store, Walmart, wherever I go, if I see a vet, I go up and say thank you.
No matter what.
I always say thank you, not for your service, just thank you, and I'm here for you.
Okay.
I usually give them a card or a pen, and my wife does it too. She's on the bandwagon too. That's one thing that the wives are the main support group for a lot of these guys, and the husbands are the main support group for the wives. It's an amazing bunch of people.
That's great. Our emphasis today is on being grateful for veterans. Just before we take our next musical break, we need to address what I think necessity teaches us that the church needs to speak to, and that is that our responsibility is to love and care for those around us. And quite frankly, I suspect that in the state of Indiana, we have an awful lot of churches with an awful lot of vets in them. Indiana is one of the primary spots that servicemen and women come from. Do you find that that's generally the case? Indiana is really an important state in this regard?
Oh, very much so. I think Kokomo probably is, it's smaller, but I think, I forget what the percentage is, but I think it's one of the greatest ones in the state. South Bend, there are so many wonderful cities up there that support their veterans, and there are so many veterans. And that's why I like to really issue a challenge to any church or organization that would be willing to you can start small and then grow, but start something to help veterans. Just open your doors and say, what can I do for you? Because it would just be so fantastic, and make these guys, any way we can stop the suicides and stop the real problems that are created by PTSD, we need to address it.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to be taking a break here, making sure that we air a bit of a commercial break, and make sure that we give some shouts out to some other folks who are doing good work around Indianapolis. And we're grateful, of course, to be here at a marvelous facility, Collaborate 317. Thankful, of course, for not only the folks that are here that we get to rub shoulders with all the time, but also the facilities that we're in. We have a great opportunity, actually, to have multiple studios here. We have video teaching sections of this particular facility. We have a place where we can have a 300-seat gala where we can invite folks in for fundraising and events such as that. This is a very important group that we are invested with here. And if you're at all interested, those of you who are here in Indianapolis area, it'd be great for you to share our open house, which is actually tomorrow evening from 6 until 8. And we'll be sharing the facilities, opening them up. There'll be some light hors d'oeuvres here, some light refreshments. But we'll be grateful to meet you and to reach out to you, to talk to you about what's going on here and invest in the next great nonprofit opportunity. So we're going to be taking a quick musical break here, and when we come back, we'll finish chatting with John Smitha about his veterans programs. You're listening to Warp and Woof Radio on RadioNext.tv at the Cool Groove site. We'll be right back. And we are back, Warp and Woof Radio, every Wednesday from 10 until noon, and we are back with John Smitha. We're discussing this great ministry that he and others are participating in. And John, just before we get back into telling some stories, we want to make sure that everybody knows what days and what times it is that folks are meeting to talk about and with vets. So go ahead and give us those times and days as well as the places that these events are every week.
Okay, every Monday I am at 126th and Promise Road, that's Guy's Christian Church, from 6 to 7. And it's in the fireplace room. Once you get in the building, you'll see the fireplace room. It's very relaxing, and we have a meeting there. And then on Tuesdays, from 10 o'clock in the morning to 2, I'm at the coffee shop, and we're inviting veterans to come in, have a cup of coffee on us, and just talk. What we're trying to do is collect stories from these veterans, especially the World War II and Korean War veterans, because once they're gone, they're dying at the rate of 10,000 a year. Once they're gone, those stories are gone, and I've had requests from daughters and wives. We need to cherish these stories. So we're trying to collect these stories, and then I've got somebody that's helping me maybe get them published into a book form, and then the receipts from this book are going 100% to Honor Flight, which is a great organization that takes World War II, Korean, Vietnam vets to Washington, D.C. It's all privately funded, no government money involved, and we're trying to raise money for them. And then on Thursdays, I'm at Fort Harrison at the northwest corner of 59th and Lee Road at the Vet Center from 6 to 7. And we have a very good meeting there, very good atmosphere, and we had several women, several men, and that's when we get down to the nitty-gritty and start talking about things and start the healing process.
Wow.
And these guys will help you. We all have each other's telephone numbers, so you can call each other 24/7, 365 if you need any help.
It sounds like such a great ministry that you're invested in here. I mean, honestly, and that the cross-current of what's happening between you all is huge. I was thinking while you were talking about all of your experiences about a man that I invited to speak in one of my chapels. I was a high school chaplain at one point back in the 90s, and I invited Bob to come in and talk about courage. I knew that Bob had fought in World War II. Well, when I invited him in, I wasn't even prepared for what he was about to tell us. He told us about the Battle of Leyte Gulf, which, for those who don't know their history, Leyte Gulf is the largest sea battle, the largest naval battle in human history, the largest sea battle in human history at Leyte Gulf. And Bob was one of those guys who was a torpedo bomber. And so he was talking about being shot down, and his bombardier was behind him, and he was bleeding, and told him stop bleeding because there are sharks in the water. I mean, he's telling us all of this stuff. And then while they were behind enemy lines for 40 days, evading the Japanese, and then finally got on a submarine, I mean, it was just this unbelievable story. So when he got all done, I mean, he was reading this story, and all of our mouths were just open wide. I mean, we couldn't believe what we were hearing. And at the end of this, I went up to him and I said, Bob, is it possible to have a copy of your story? And he thought for a moment, about 10 seconds, and he said, no, I haven't even told this story to my children. And he had just told us, hundreds of high school students, something he had never told anybody before. And so now when I hear you talking about what you're describing here is ethnography, where you're going out and you're capturing the histories of people and then putting them down, it sounds like something like I experienced personally. Also sounds like Tom Brokaw's The Greatest Generation. I mean, this would be a marvelous opportunity to do something like this.
Yeah, especially with the Hoosier veterans. I've met a lot of World War II veterans. Some of them are my neighbors. One of them,
wow.
He was on the ship that refueled Doolittle's Raiders.
Wow.
One of my buddies that connected me with the VA was at EWO.
Okay.
And real heroes. And that's why I say we need to cherish those stories because that's part of history. And what's their great-grandkids going to say? Well, what did Grandpa do during the war? And I don't know. He never said anything. And that's what we try to get out. And I've told my family what I did hesitantly because I didn't know whether they'd love me anymore or not after I told them, but they sure did. I told them I got twin sons and told them, and they looked at each other and said, that explains a lot.
Yeah.
And I've told my vets to talk to their families and tell them what you did. And I've watched a lot of growth in these families since the families know what that spouse did and say, well, that's why he acts like he does. That's why she acts like she does. And support them.
This is so helpful to know how it is that we should go about the support process. You know, as we kind of wind down our program here today, John, I wanted to make sure to get at least a story or two from you about one of those vets that you think is really important to tell us. So go ahead and tell us a story.
Yeah, one of them, now he has written a book called Escape with Honor. His name is Charles Layton. Dear friend, I just talked to him last week, and he's going to come to my coffee chat meeting. But he was at the Chosun Reservoir in Korea, 50 below zero weather. And he and 36 others were captured. And he was put in a camp, and the building wasn't much larger than a two-car garage. 50 below zero weather. They took their boots, gave them rice once a day, no facilities whatsoever. So for 17 weeks they were there. And since Charles was an airborne ranger, they put him in charge. And he decided after making observations that every 3 weeks they brought in liquor and some other things to the guards, who weren't crack troops, but they were the guards. And Charles decided that when next time they brought all this stuff in for them for their little break, that was when they were most vulnerable, and he was going to take out the two guards, one at each end of the building, and they were going to escape. So they saved rice bags and to wrap around their feet because they took their boots. And Charles was tortured every day for 17 weeks. When they came in to torture the weakest one, he would fight with them, make them take him. And to this day, he still has a hard time walking on a carpet because his feet hurt. They beat him. And anyway, after 17 weeks, they came in a week early. He said, well, we're going to go anyway. So he took out the 2 guards, and they escaped. They heard artillery, went to the sound of the artillery, were spotted by a spotter plane, and all of a sudden a bunch of choppers came in and picked them all up.
Wow.
He never saw them again. He got home, and his parents had moved. And he found out where they lived, so he was in a general location walking toward their house, and he saw his wife, or not his wife, but his mother and sister walking toward him. And his mother said, where have you been? And he said, I was a prisoner of war over in Korea. Well, how'd you get away? He said, well, I killed 2 guards and led 36 guys out, and we were saved. And she said, we have no room in this house for a murderer.
Oh,
and
my.
that was 60 years ago. And he knows where they're buried, but has never seen them. His sister still doesn't talk to him.
Oh, my word.
But he's turned out to be one beautiful, beautiful person. And he's a man of faith. And he told this book, Escape with Honor. If you ever get a chance to read it, read it.
Oh,
it's,
my.
It's before, during, and after his deployments.
This is a fantastic story, and we're so pleased that you told it to us, and so pleased again for your ministry. Thank you ever so much for coming in today, John. We're grateful.
Thank you for having me. I love getting a chance to talk about this. It needs everybody's attention.
As many people as we have opportunity to tell about this, we will. The podcast will come out later today. We'll be pushing that out to lots of different folks. You can use it for whatever you want in the future. We're grateful very much for your service, but also for the service that you're doing now. Sue, thank you very much for your service to your husband. We're grateful. You are listening to Warp and Woof Radio on RadioNext.tv at the Cool Groove site. Next week, you do not want to miss next week. Gordon Brooks will be here. He is going to be playing his sax, and we are going to be bringing in Dennis Wilson, one of his good friends, a musician and an educator. The day before Thanksgiving, what a group of 2 men, 2 great buddies for a long time. We're looking forward to having them in the studio next week. We're grateful for this week. Thank you ever so much for joining us. We'll be back next, and we'll look forward to seeing you then.